How's this for Japanese efficiency? We're already on episode 005. Of A Review to a Kill, which is a look back on the James Bond film franchise presented to you by fanboysanonymous.com. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango. I've got with me Robert DeFelice.
Oh, the things I do for fanboys.
And I've got with me Callum Wiggins.
You only live twice, but this movie can die 1,000,000 times over.
Now, just to be, get this out of the way, just to be sure, Callum, for European, you're exceptionally cultivated.
Oh, thank you.
And if you're Robert DeFelice, by the way, how do you feel about me?
You're not going to say it.
No.
Oh, the journey out will be more dignified than the journey in, I'm sure. We are talking.
Just get the transcripts and you're just reading it off, right?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go through the whole film.
Yeah.
I do have to ask though, Callum. Do you have exceptional hair on your chest as an Englishman?
I mean, I can't speak from too much visitor, so I don't think I have excessive amounts, but definitely not Sean Connery levels. But I don't know whether it would be enough to fascinate the Japanese women.
That's unfortunate.
If you can't tell, you're in for a doozy of an episode, because You Only Live Twice is weird. And we are going to break down the film in the way that we normally do here. After these past couple episodes, you should know the deal by now. We're going to talk about the girls, the gadgets, the action, the humor, Bond's allies, Bond himself, the music, the villains, all the other kind of things that go along with this. And we invite you to do the same in the comments below. And just to get these plugs out of the way, what I mean by the comments below is the YouTube video. So if you're over there and you are, checking this out and you're listening along, hit the like button if you're enjoying it. That helps out quite a bit with the YouTube search algorithm and whatever nonsense Google is figuring out of whether or not you should watch these or not. And there's the like button, there's the subscribe button, there's the little notification bell. You should check out what we've got going on patreon.com/fanboysanonymous, especially if you want to help us grow and you want to see more content like this. Even $1 goes a long way, so, keep that in mind. $10 and up gives you access to the bonus features, which are exclusive to Patreon and eventually on the YouTube join button membership, whatever they want to call that thing. It's not really the best, hey, hit us up on Patreon. Hey, do the join membership button on YouTube. They got to figure out a better way to word that. But we are recording this on the 1st of February, for context. We are recording these well in advance as we're releasing them. So in case anything changes or whatever, there's just a little bit of notification for that. And, of course, you should be following us on Facebook and Twitter. You should be following us individually on that as well. I am at Tony Mango. Callum is at Wigmeister14. Rob is at Dude Felice. And we'll talk about the pro wrestling stuff and whatever later. But, You Only Live Twice is our target for this edition. It is the 5th Bond film, hence episode 005. It is one of
Austin Powers film.
Oh, it is very Austin Powers. This one, maybe more than any other one. Like when we had talked about Goldfinger and Thunderball, it was like, oh, we're getting into the Austin Powers type stuff. This one's like, let's take that to an 11. And this was one of the ones I was most interested in talking about because it is bonkers. And anytime I watch it, I go, oh man, I forgot about that line. Oh, I forgot about that line. Or, before we get into some of the start of this, the movie's title is You Only Live Twice. It's one of my favorite titles. We'll get into that in a little bit. But it's not just called You Only Live Twice. It's, different translations from different countries. Just they do this for every single Bond film. They do it for pretty much every film. Some things just don't translate quite as well. And there's a running theme of a lot of Bond films where it's like, 007 Goldfinger or 007 whatever, just so people know it's a 007 film. Some of the titles in different languages for this one, I found some of them a little bit funny. Some of them aren't really, ha ha ha. But there's, in France, this movie is called One Doesn't Live More Than Twice, which is a little bit of a mouthful. In Latin America, it's It Only Lives Twice. I don't know what it is. It's a little strange. In Japan, which you would think that this would be like, let's make sure we get the actual name of the film. It's called 007 Dies Twice.
I like it.
It's just sort of like, spoiler alert, I guess. I don't know. In Germany, it's
correct as well. He only dies once.
right. Yeah, he doesn't die at all. But
yeah, that's true.
in Germany, it's One Only Lives Twice. Okay. In Norway and Greece, it's just James Bond in Japan. In Finley, it's You Only Live Twice. Or no, it's You Live Only Twice. So they just swapped it around.
Where?
In Finland.
You said Finley.
Finley? In Brazil and Portugal, it's with 007, You Only Live Twice. So that's mostly their way of just being like, hey, remember, this is a Bond film. But my favorite of them all, in China, it's called 007 Seized the Rocket Base. I would love it if these movies are all called that. Like if Thunderball was called 007 Goes Swimming for a While. And Goldfinger's like, 007's got a bomb to defuse next to lots of gold. Or 007's villain throws a hat or something. Like. I'd love these literal translations like that. And before we get into the start of the film itself, let's talk about what happened before the movie was even made. Because this movie almost didn't get made. During the location scouting phase, a bunch of the production team just happened to miss one of their flights. They were going to be checking out some stuff, and they got invited to do this impromptu ninja demonstration. And the flight that they were supposed to go on, everyone on board died 25 minutes after takeoff. Apparently, the plane, quote unquote, disintegrated over Mount Fuji. Which they were like, yeah, let's check out this ninja thing instead of going on that plane. And then they're like, oh, fuck. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, there now describe that as a good fortune. It's still terrible that all those people died on the plane, but I guess they were lucky at the very least.
Yeah. And this was not even supposed to be the next movie that was in line. They were going to be filming on Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is the next film. But that movie's got a lot of skiing sequences, and they couldn't really get the locations locked down in time. It was like different weather and everything. They were still like looking for some areas that they could have filmed or whatever. So they're like, fuck it. Let's do You Only Live Twice, which causes massive continuity issues, as you'll see. And this is, I've never read the books, but apparently this is pretty different from the book because of that. And because they needed to just add some more characters and everything.
So again, I haven't read the books in particular, but from what I've gathered from the side of things, it's the first real of these Bond movies which really just takes the semblance and the title and some of the locations from Ian Fleming's original stuff, and then just goes, okay, and then we're going to write our own screenplay. Because funny enough, the screenplay for this was written by Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
The guy that wrote all those children's books and stuff like that. Yeah, he also did Bond movies as well. And
he didn't really care when he was writing it. He pretty much, he was given an outline of like what they had called at that time, the Bond formula. And he was like, all right, you got this girl does this, and you got this guy does this, and whatever. And he thought of it as just sort of like, I don't know, like a little challenge exercise. And they were like, great, this is a movie. And he's like, okay. You know. But like he added the characters of Osato and Aki and Helga Brandt. In the book, instead of a volcano, it's just some kind of island with all these deadly plants and animals. The villain in it's called Shatterhand, which is a name that they've never used yet, but they probably should because it sounds like a Bond villain name. Like, go to check out Dr. Shatterhand. Be like, what happened to him? I fucked up his eye. That kind of thing. Where'd you get that name from? I'll talk about it another day. But this movie is weird. So let's just start diving into it. We start off with once again a formula that we're going to see going forward that's carbon copied for The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker and Tomorrow Never Dies, where it's we start off with villains stealing something. And it's just like, steal a rocket, you steal a spaceship, you steal a whatever. It's kind of the same sort of thing, but I love the music in the sequence. This is one of my favorite little pieces from the series. It's
I was more caught up with the. I mean, I know we mentioned quite a few of these things in Thunderball, but this film, the visuals in this film, take all the worst elements of the Thunderball thing and just turn them up to 11, because just like the visual of the rocket swallowing this other rocket and the astronaut having his tether severed and just flying out into space is just. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. It's just one illustration of just an on-running series of really awful camera, like really awful visuals. And I know it's 1967, but still, it was too hilarious not to mention all this stuff.
Credit where it's due, they didn't do the speed up thing, but if you check out like
That's the only thing you can give them credit for.
Yeah, if you check out like the visuals for, I forget exactly what shot it is. It's before the tether gets cut, but the astronaut's got this like clearly different black background to him that they just didn't composite differently.
It's part of me wonders if we're getting to a point where they're just like, we're going towards the 70s and we're knee deep in this phenomenon of, like, I was gonna say TV, well, kind of TV, but obviously this is cinema, and they're just getting wacky for the sake of wacky, because like this is the time period of, like, you know, Adam West's Batman and stuff like that, and it's just kooky for the sake of it.
One of my big notes on this that I have asterisked at the top of my notes is this film does things for the sake of doing things. And they just pretty much do.
Even with that, it's like I know obviously you mentioned the idea about, again, with Thunderball previously, that for me that was like a really good balance between the stuff that you can kind of just see quite, I would say, like realistic, but has a sort of like tangible nature to it, and the things which are just stretching the bounds of being bizarre because it's obviously like major supervillainy. And this one again just goes so far in the opposite direction. Just goes, okay, wacky stuff, turn that up to 11. Try and basically remove as much of the realistic stuff that could potentially happen as possible, and just make this it's almost like a Bond superhero movie, it feels like, to an extent.
Yeah, you would think that this would be the movie where he has the jetpack, right?
Yeah.
But we get the opening is somebody is stealing a rocket from the United States. And like I said, I like the music in this. It's do 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 do. It's one of those just little things that I've always liked. And I do like that the astronaut gets his lifeline cut. It's just one of those unnecessarily mean sort of things that happens. Doesn't look at all realistic. The models are, you know, I mean, today's standards, this doesn't hold up, but it's a different time. And we get into almost immediately one of those lines that makes you go, oh, God damn it, which is, why do Chinese girls taste different from all other girls?
yeah, that was an immediate sign to me of like, okay, this is what I'm getting into.
Yeah, you're like, now I understand why Tony's talking about.
Again, this is a great Austin Powers film.
It seems like that should be a line in an Austin Powers thing, and then it could be like some kind of a gag where he holds up like one of those little Chinese food containers or something, you know. But
yeah, I'm not surprised they didn't do like a scene in Austin Powers where this is like a lineup of Chinese girls, and he says, "I'll have a number 7 and number 14." And
yeah.
Well,
one of those.
A fook me and a fook you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this seems like it would be a direct, like, the go-to line in an Austin Powers thing would be like, why do Chinese girls taste different from all the girls? And then some kind of, you know, the old stereotypical joke of like, after you eat Chinese food, you're always hungry in an hour. Like, it could be that kind of thing of like, oh, you know, after I have Ling, I'm going to be hungry for more in an hour, that kind of thing or something. But I don't understand this at all. Ling acts as though she's betraying Bond, and that he's not in on this idea of these guys come in, they shoot up the bed that's in the wall, and Bond's dead for the 3rd time in the franchise already. Which you only live twice. This is the 3rd time he's dead. And none of this makes any sense the way that it's executed. Like, from Russia with Love, you've got the oh, okay, well, it's a training thing and, whatever. And Thunderball, the James Bond, the JB casket, you're like, you got me. All right, Bond's not whatever. That's at least logical. This one throws that all out the window. There is no way this makes any sense. Why would Ling act the way that she does if this is the way that that's supposed to be set up? And they would know that he's not dead. And they use fake bullets and fake everything. Then why bother? None of this makes sense.
My only theory for this to potentially make sense is that Bond already knows that hotel room is being watched. And so they have to make it look realistic to have him seem like he's actually being killed, because people see that coming and think like, oh, it's just one of these other enemies who've come in and killed him, so we don't need to worry about him anymore.
Yeah, if it's bugged, then I'll buy it. But they didn't do a setup enough to be like, okay, make sure that the bug is on right now, or so, like one of those kind of things.
No, but they just did it for the shock value side of it.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Bond's dead immediately. But then they should have probably read the title of the movie, unless they're in China, in which case they had no idea what was going on with this.
Then he's like, how come he hasn't seized the rocket base? How did they get to the fireworks factory?
Yeah, it seems like it was just one of those things to add shock for the audience. And let's face it, Bond was never fond of telling the women he's with, letting them in.
The
one guy goes, well, at least he died on the job. He would have wanted it this way.
Yeah, that was one of the funniest jokes.
So we get into the title sequence. Nancy Sinatra's "You Only Live Twice," absolute classic. One of my favorite ones. I love it.
Sinatra's great.
Yeah, I love the song. The version that I listen to, because I usually have like a playlist of Bond things that I kind of listen to if I'm working and stuff like that, and I just need something to distract me. But the version that I listen to is a lot more, I don't know how to describe it. It's more organic than this one. This felt in the actual movie feels super cleaned up, and I didn't like it as much.
Apparently, the recording that's used in this is a mashup of 25 different recordings.
Right.
Where she was just like super duper nervous. And
okay.
But yeah, I agree with you. There's I don't think that anybody has ever done a cover version of this that does the song's potential justice. It's better than what the Nancy Sinatra version is, but I just haven't found a good enough version. Bjork does a cover that's got like more ethereal elements to it. It's like slower. And
Bjork, you don't say.
Yeah. I think that this has like a haunting sadness to it. And I love the lyrics too. For anybody who doesn't know, just to read them off real quick, just because it's poetry as it is. It's you only live twice, or so it seems. One life for yourself and one for your dreams. You drift through the years and life seems tame, till one dream appears and love is its name. And love is a stranger who'll beckon you on. Don't think of the danger or the stranger is gone. This dream is for you, so pay the price. Make one dream come true. You only live twice. I fucking love that. It's one of my best, or one of the favorite lines in any of these songs to me.
Yeah, it's a very well written one. It doesn't feel like it's out of place, or they've tried to jam in the title in a vain attempt to try and make it seem like it's plausible to be there.
Yeah, we don't have any Thunderball bullshit here.
Yeah, it's not like you only live twice, or so it seems. Octopussy, sort of like. The visuals of this, we've got Japanese women in kimonos. We got volcanoes this time instead of underwater. It's good.
It just sets the scene. It just says in this movie you're going to see a lot of Japanese women and volcanoes, and that's basically what you get.
Yeah. Not my favorite of the title sequences as far as just like the pure visuals go, but they're getting a little bit more experimental here, and it's good. It's not like the Thunderball one. I think is a little bit underwhelming because it is just people underwater with silhouettes. And there's some worse ones in the future. And Moonraker is not really particularly great, but I like it. I mean, they could do better composites and they could do better this, better that. But for the time, I'm sure people were just like, this is pretty crazy. And this song was sampled in a very popular song, Robbie Williams' Millennium.
Yep. Which is a great song.
Yeah.
So the whole do 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 do. A lot of people actually know that more from that song than anything else. This is very, very high up on my Bond theme list. I don't remember exactly where I've got it on my tier list right now. That's actually, I didn't do the tier list yet on that thing as far as I can see. I think that it's probably going to be somewhere in the top 10. And I mean, we'll do that eventually. I've got a whole doc that I've got going on where eventually at the end of this, when we're in that gap between Spectre and No Time to Die, we're going to do the Austin Powers movies, and we're going to potentially do these like tier list type stuff. But this is definitely up on the high list for me. And actually, no, I've got currently have it ranked number 2 from the ones we've got so far. Goldfinger number 1. Where am I at? Oh, my notes here. I am at the Bond's funeral. They go through this whole song and dance of even having Bond in the mummified coffin sort of get up and needing divers to rescue him and put him in a submarine and all this. Convoluted as all hell. You know, really not necessary. Then again, look at what they did to quote unquote kill him. It's a thing. I don't love it.
Yeah. I do appreciate Bond asking for permission to come aboard.
Yeah, it's a good little line. And I think that this is the first time he's referred to as Commander, if I remember correctly.
Commander James Bond. Maybe Roald Dahl just didn't know who James Bond was, or had never read the books before or anything like that, and just assumed that he's a commander.
He's definitely a commander in the books.
Oh.
But I don't remember if they ever referred to him in the other films, like if Dr. No was like, oh, did you talk to Commander Bond or something like that? But that's his backstory. We don't know too much about Bond's backstory over the course of these books and these movies and everything. It's basically come out that, like, originally he wasn't supposed to be Scottish. They made him Scottish in the books after Connery did Dr. No. But the backstory essentially of Bond is his parents die in what they refer to as a climbing accident. They never really specify what. But they die, and he eventually goes into the military, becomes a commander, and then just gets recruited into MI6. That's basically all we know about Bond, which is kind of funny. You'd think that after decades and decades, they'd be like, let's flesh out this character more, and let's say this guy was a guy that used to train him or whatever like that. No, it's just sort of like, he's a guy. All right.
Yeah, we've established that they don't like to flesh out characters.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we do learn a bit more about Bond here in the fact that he has a first from Cambridge in Oriental languages, which is convenient.
Yeah, so I don't like this Moneypenny interaction all that much. It's my least favorite so far. And
we can still a bunch.
I wrote down a note of it feels like they're mad at each other because the chemistry isn't there and there's like an animosity. Turns out that's pretty much true. Because Lois Maxwell, who plays Moneypenny, and Bernard Lee, who is M, in the meantime, they had done a spoof film with Connery's younger brother. So he was pissed. And Bond has this sort of... In this movie, he doesn't seem like, I don't know, he's having as much fun, Connery.
Well, they talk about the fact about there were production issues behind the scenes. Basically, he was apparently like he didn't talk to I'm trying to remember the guy's name, the main producer.
Yeah, he pretty much
Broccoli,
refused to be in this movie and act if he was on set.
Yeah,
there's issues where there was a mistranslation where he had said something along the lines of, when Japanese women wear kimonos, they're not sexy. And that was sort of like a little bit of a mistranslation, a little bit of just Connery being him. So it was sort of like, well, Bond doesn't like Japanese women. Fuck Bond, that kind of thing. And the people like on the sets and stuff were getting under Connery's skin. At one point, somebody had seen him just dressed up, just like a normal guy. Like he wasn't like on set wearing a suit or whatever. And somebody was like, wow, is this what James Bond dresses like? And he was like, no, this is what Sean Connery dresses like. Like he was just sort of like, fuck you. I don't want to be around these people anymore. Not at all into doing the part. And it shows in this kind of scene. Even like he tosses the hat So we got the hat thing, and he just goes, "Hello, Penny. Thank you, ma'am." It's so cold.
Yeah. I mean, it's already weird enough in the sense that they're in a submarine and it's basically just a carbon copy of their offices, except it's in a submarine instead. That was a bit off-putting again for me. This is one of the more tame things, but it still seems quite bizarre just looking at it.
Yeah, this is one of the first of many instances where M has an office in a random-ass location, and some of them get pretty fun. But he always has a shit ton of books behind him, no matter where we're at, which I find funny. And we get to...
Well, that's what a boss has. They have books.
I'm like, at this point, when you start getting into like the man with the golden gun, it's going to be like, he couldn't possibly have read all these books. Because there's at least like 2,000.
Isn't there one of those things that's going around now, especially like in the Zoom age of things, where managers are buying fake stacks of books and things like that just so they can put behind them, so it makes it look on Zoom calls, so it makes them look like they're learning and stuff like that when they actually don't do that stuff.
You know,
yeah,
I'm not surprised.
That is a very, very big thing in decorating. That you just buy these fake books. Hey, they look classy, don't they?
Somebody should just buy a bunch of what are those the books for dummies? Just have a whole shelf full of that yellow and black. Yeah, this is not the best one. There is some decent enough lines that would have been better. Oh, by the way, how was the girl? But then she goes, the Chinese one we fixed you up with, and a few more minutes and I would have found out. Yeah. I like that the code phrase is "I love you," and Moneypenny wants him to repeat it, and he just doesn't. It's like, that's kind of a dick move, but like you had said, she tosses him an instant Japanese book to learn, and he's like, "Oh, you forgot I took a first in Oriental languages at Cambridge," and just tosses it back to her. We get a little bit, he's at Cambridge. They do a lot of Oxford stuff in the past with Bond, and eventually in the franchise, we're going to see him bone his teacher at Oxford.
He's the master now, huh?
Professor Ingra Bergstrom, I think is her name. Very good looking woman. Lois Maxwell seems like she's dubbed here, which is weird. Do you guys catch that with her voice?
I think the dubbing in the entire movie is terrible, so I wouldn't surprise me if that's the case.
I agree with Callum.
You want to take a guess who voices Kissy Suzuki?
Well, I know it's that.
It's the same one as always.
That Dutch lady. What name was, I can't remember it. But...
Nikki van der Zyl.
That's right.
Like, let's call up Nikki. We're doing another movie. Tanaka's dubbed too, and oddly enough, the actress who plays Helga Brandt is German, and they dubbed her in the German film. She's like, why not get her to do it? She's German. Very strange.
They just like dubbing. They're just very into it.
Yeah. They're just like, get Nikki van der Zyl. And they're like, well, the character's Tiger Tanaka. Get Nikki van der Zyl. Bond's looking old here, too. He's aged quite a bit after just a few years. Like, he's in considerably better shape in Dr. No. You can tell it in his face, and he's just beaten down, kind of.
Yeah.
Endless fucking will do that to you. You know, just come on, where's that man?
I guess he looked better at his first life. You gotta give him a little bit of credit for that one. And this is not the worst that we'll see Sean Connery looking, because this is not his last Bond film, despite the fact that somebody else comes in the next film. We'll move over to our section where it's like, let's meet up a lot of our other characters, and we start off with sumo wrestling. I love the sounds in this one. The beginning of this, the guy that's I don't know, he's setting up the scene with like the sumo wrestlers or whatever, and I have no idea what he says, but the noises that he makes are great. He's just like, I'm like, oh my god, what's happening here? I forgot about that. I love that dude's voice. And we meet one of his contacts here, one of the primary Bond girls, Aki. I quite like Aki.
I enjoy Aki.
Yeah, Aki was great.
She's a pretty girl, of course, because they're not gonna like hire some chud. She's capable. She's smart. I think she's underrated. Actually, she's like far from the best Bond girl, but I don't think she gets any credit, and that's a shame. Nobody ever really like brings her up, and she's far better than Kissy Suzuki, I think.
No, yeah, she rescues Bond in multiple occasions throughout the movie. She clearly shows elements of intelligence. She like tricks him in a good way, in which case she doesn't actually put him in any sort of danger, but she tricks him into following her and manages to get him in front of Tanaka that way. Yeah, so she's clearly a more intelligent and capable character, and I feel that achieving the thing where we'll talk about later on with her demise, it actually makes you feel sorry for her, which I guess is the thing that you want to feel at the end of that.
Yeah, it was by the time she dies, you just end up feeling like, oh, that could have been a decent ending for Bond, or like a decent Bond girl for him to have throughout the movie, but yeah.
And a little bit of trivia. We'll talk about Kissy Suzuki later, but they swapped roles. They were cast as the opposite parts, and the woman who plays Aki, Akiko is her name. That's the reason why it's the character's name's Aki, because she was just like, hey, why isn't it just Aki? And they're like, all right, because the character in the book is just one character named just Suki. So that's how they got Aki and then Kissy Suzuki. And they had originally swapped the parts, and they said, crap, she can't speak English as well, so let's give the other role to the other one, because she could do better with more dialogue. And Mia Hama was struggling more, so they were just like, you could be Kissy Suzuki then. And she was in a situation where she thought that she didn't get the job because of that, and went into like this horrible depression. They were like, no, you could be Kissy Suzuki instead, or whatever. And it was like this whole weird kind of scenario where it would have been, I don't know, a different kind of setup if things would have gone a little bit differently. I think they'd said something in the commentary about like they spent 12 weeks trying to learn English or something. And, overall, I mean, we could tell that they're dubbed, but I think that at the very least, Aki, I think that it's pulled off pretty well. What are my notes here? Go ahead.
I mean, you can tell that it's not clear her first language, but then again, it's not supposed to be, so it's fine. She wasn't. It's not like she's completely misunderstandable or anything like that. You can tell everything she's saying. So
yeah, her mouth matches up with what she's saying. It's not like, wow, you're just speaking another language and we're just pretending like it's something else or whatever. And we get Mr. Henderson, a character that's in the story as Ditko Henderson. The actor, Charles Gray, is going to pop up again later in this franchise in another role that is mind-bendingly stupid. We'll come back to this.
Okay, well, hopefully it's at least a little bit more prominent than this one, which essentially he just talks to Bond for a little while, fucks up his drink by giving him a stirred martini rather than a shaken one, and then just dies by having a knife stabbed in his back through a paper wall.
His next appearance is far worse. Far worse. There's no comparison.
Jesus.
And yeah, if the three things you can take away from this scene is he gets whacked in his fake leg with his cane, he says, oh, it's stirred, not shaken, right? And he gets that weird knife in the back, and it's still like, damn, it's a shame that he came back and did the other part. We'll get to that when we get to Diamonds Are Forever.
Oh, that's the one I'm most excited for.
Yeah, we're on a trip for these next couple of Bond films. I like, though, that he's a British agent that's been living in Japan for a while, and the way that they've set up his living quarters is kind of like a combo of different design elements. It's a nice little touch. Bond pretends to be the assassin by changing clothes and acting injured to get into the car, which fucking works. He's just like, and the guy's like, all right, let's go back to Osato Chemical.
Can we mention who the driver is?
Yeah, the fight sequence. So you've looked it up, obviously. Yeah, Rob, did you look it up, Rob?
I did not.
All right, guess who he fights in this. You recognize him.
I didn't. Am I gonna feel stupid for not recognizing him?
I mean, to be fair, I don't know if Rob's really watched this guy in too close a detail. He's a familiar name, but it might not be so easy to decipher on the eye. Let's say he's the grandfather of one of the world's most famous movie stars right now.
Huh.
You got to guess?
It's the Samoan?
It's High Chief Peter Maivia.
Oh, fuck.
That was. I looked that up and just went, "Oh my god, it's High Chief Peter Maivia." Like, I looked at it and thought, "Oh, maybe he's a wrestler," because obviously they have had wrestlers in this thing in the past and stuff like that. So I thought I'd check it out. The fact that it is just Peter Maivia, like he got in the movies before Bond did, not for The Rock. Obviously, he's not genetic. Obviously,
yeah, it's just one of those weird things, and they pay no attention to it in like the commentary track, for instance, on the Blu-rays. They're like, "Oh, we got this great wrestler. He's a big hulking kind of guy. Very good. You know, he's great in the scene." And it's like
Hall of Famer.
It's like he's The Rock's good. Like, yeah, it's kind of like
obviously not. He's like, well, I get, obviously he's The Rock's like maternal grandfather and stuff like that. So it's not like so. But yeah, it's just really, really bizarre to me that they wouldn't be too much more of a detail and stuff like that. Like The Rock wouldn't, like The Rock's never talked about it as far as I'm aware, anything like that, or highlight that sort of thing. It's like his grandfather was in a Bond movie.
Yeah, like,
maybe he doesn't know.
How has he not been in a Bond film and somebody else has, but like not him?
It's just one of those weird little bits of trivia that like makes you go, "Wow, the Bond franchise is weird." But it's a good little action sequence. I like it. You know, he's dodging the sword and all. He breaks a statue, like, which gets called back later on. But I dig it. It's not the best, but it's good.
Was good. That was a good fight scene.
What? Oh wow!
You just watching the scene now?
No, I just keep going.
He takes a gulp of Siamese vodka at some point. He's like, "Ugh, Siamese vodka."
More racism.
Yeah, because you got to throw that in there. And he just happens to have this handy little gadget on him, despite the fact that the thing with Henderson was not planned at all or whatever, but that he can crack a safe. Totally inconvenient that as soon as he opens it up, the alarm goes off.
Yeah, so, that's like the worst kind of safe cracking device.
Yeah. But, you know, good enough, whatever. And I like that later on. Well, we'll get to it. I'll skip until we get to later. But Bond gets saved by Aki. They drive away. But it's, you know, I mean, this is weird. This is the only film in the franchise where Bond doesn't drive a car.
Maybe he doesn't like driving on that side of the road.
Maybe. But also, Akiko doesn't drive the car. She couldn't drive. So all the scenes of the cars and everything, except for like the shots that are clearly just like a rear projection kind of thing, are a guy in a wig.
That'd be a guy in a wig. They couldn't just get a woman to drive a car.
A woman, please.
It's the way that they are with these.
And this is a Bond film.
On top of that, this car wasn't a convertible, and Sean Connery's too tall for to be able to sit in it, so they had to make it a convertible. So this is just all over the place, fucking weird.
It's a mess.
Yeah, it's again there's so many elements of this movie that are interesting as all hell, and for some reason she sets up Bond with this trap door, which I don't understand. It's basically just so Tiger Tanaka can be like, ha ha ha. Like, you know that this is your contact and whatever, and why not just be like, go to meet Tiger and whatever. But she has to play this little cat and mouse game, and Bond falls through this little trap door, which is very Austin Powers. And,
I think it's like the idea that Tanaka feels like he's playing games with Bond in terms of like outsmarting him and stuff like that. Maybe just like that's his own weird sense of humor.
Yeah.
In the same way that Bond basically emasculates every person that he tries to come across, and now he's being emasculated by Tanaka.
I'm here for it.
You know what the most bizarre thing was, like the close-up shots of Bond's face going down the trap door was just, again, it's some of the worst cinematography in the entire franchise.
Yeah, it's real bad. Obviously, of course, Connery didn't do like the full stunt, and they were just swapping it with Bob Simmons or whatever. But they could have done that so much better. We'll talk about more about the
stunt work later.
So later on, we get some more with Tiger, and they have a little thing that I think is another one of those Bond's a dick kind of moments, where he's like, would you rather have a vodka martini or sake? And he's like, oh, I like sake, especially when it's served at the correct temperature, 98.4 degrees. Which is like, well,
what a fucking dork.
Yeah. toot, Mr. Bond, fucking, wow.
So-
You're really going to go through that effort,
So can I talk a little bit about this? Because I did a little bit of extra research into Bond's drinking habits. In the books, particularly.
Yeah.
And so in the actual book of You Only Live Twice, Bond only consumes sake as the only alcoholic beverage outside of a pint of Jack Daniels is the other thing that he drinks in the books. But everything else he drinks is sake. So overall Bond, and this is the only book as well where Bond drinks sake. Overall Bond drinks, in the entirety of the series, which I guess is, again, just this one book, he drinks 35 glasses of sake in the
Jesus.
book, making it the second most consumed beverage in the entire book series for him, behind bourbon whiskey. In comparison, Bond only has 19 vodka martinis in the books overall.
That's so weird.
Wow.
Yeah, and actually, when you combine both the movies and the books together to his most popular overall drink, it's actually champagne. He drinks more champagne than any other.
That makes sense.
Beverage. Yeah,
there's plenty of champagne scenes, like The World's Not Enough and everything, but
yeah. I think it was like he drinks 35 glasses of champagne in the movies and 30 glasses in the books.
Was it 35 things of sake?
No, 30. Yeah, it was 35 sakes in the book, in that one book.
Yeah. Wow. Man,
that's
it's
amazing.
getting loaded in Japan.
Yeah, I think I recall like somebody saying to me once that there's a line in one of the Bond books. I can't remember which one in particular, but it's one of the lines starts off with Bond lit his 80th cigarette of the day.
Jesus, no wonder. They do at some point in Die Another Day. They go, they check Bond out for like a physical, and they're like, his liver's not so good. So, yeah. Oh man. But so Tiger goes from this whole thing. They're checking out the microdot or whatever. Yeah, there's nothing that I think that there's really too much to talk about in this one. We got to get to the bathhouse scene. This is where we get into some real bad shit.
Yeah.
I got so many notes to run down on this. Starting off with, Tiger says, "For tonight, consider my house yours, including my possessions." And it cuts right to a group of women servants in bra and panties.
Yeah.
It's just like, they're just items. Come on, guys. Like, you're literally referring to them as your possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, rule number 1 is never do anything for yourself when someone else can do it for you. And rule number 2 is, in Japan, men always come first, women come second.
I was surprised that didn't come back as a line later, where Bond would say, where Bond would be with one of the girls and would just say, "I thought in Japan men come first," and then it's just like a line about, "Haha, he made her come." That's right. That's
peak Austin Powers though. Come on.
It's the whole men always come first, women come second, if at all.
Yeah, and then after he says that as well, in Japan men come first, women come second, Bond replies with, "I might just retire here."
And he starts setting up this idea that they're going to bathe him, and he's like, "I like the plumbing." Tanaka says, "Your English girls would never perform this service. Miss Moneypenny, perhaps." So it's like the whole, that's the secretary can bathe you.
Yeah, it's just the idea that Bond says, well, I'm sure some would be compliant and stuff like that. It's just like, he's got a magic penis.
Yeah.
It's great. It's all fucking insanely toxic now.
Every line of the scene is bad.
Yeah. Like the bathroom, fascinated by his chest here, Bond makes a proverb saying about how birds don't make nests in bare trees.
Yeah. Japanese men have beautiful bare skin and all that.
But honestly, the best line, and it's just such a throwaway line. Just that he points out one of the girls.
I know which one you're gonna go
massage, for. And just goes, "Oh, she is very sexiful."
He did say sexual. I thought he said sensible. I'm like, no. Like, he had to say sensible, sensual. He did say sexiful.
Yeah, pick your massage girl. Christ. And just that one, that's good choice. So she's very sexiful.
That is so
ridiculous.
top 10 Bond quote of all time.
Yeah.
She is very sexiful.
Oh, it's a parody of itself at this point.
It's so bad. All of it is so bad. And eventually Aki takes over for the masseuse because she just wants to fuck Bond already, despite their interactions not being in the slightest bit romantic, more like adversarial than anything.
Well, she's just fascinated by the chest hair. So.
I mean, no wonder why. She's a bird. She needs a nest. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Come on, Tony. You don't like a good happy ending?
He just goes, Aki, like, oh, no wonder you're here. And she goes, no one will disturb you tonight. I think I will enjoy very much serving under you. Jesus Christ. I fucking love this franchise. It's so fucking batshit ridiculous.
Imagine like not knowing this franchise and this is the first movie you come across in 2021 for it. Just like, I know, again, we have to put it in context. It's 1967. People are like this, but come on, man. It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's so over the top. It's like, oh my God, we're going to film a movie in Japan. Let's get every single racist stereotype we could possibly think about the Japanese and put it into one movie.
Yeah. Like, so ahead of time, before watching this film, when we were talking about it, both of these guys were like, oh, he doesn't do things like with his eyes and stuff. And I'm like, we'll get into that a little bit later on too.
We get that, yeah.
They had a checklist and they were just like, let's just do that and that and that. And they fucking did it all.
Well, again, if we're going to talk about the context of the time, there are plenty of like children's cartoons that are just like, haha, the Japs.
Right. Like, we are Siamese, if you please, and stuff.
Really.
And, I'm not like we haven't even mentioned about Mickey Rooney or something like that.
Yeah.
With the Breakfast at Tiffany's. It's like that was far more egregious than what we'll end up seeing with the Bond side of things. But it's just, it's very much of the time. So I can't hate on it too much for that reason. I can just hate on it in some context though, because it's just awful.
Yeah, this is
this is a movie that feels every single one of its 54 years.
Yeah. I don't even know if this would have been at the time this was a lot more PC acceptable, at least then. But even like by the time you get to the Roger Moore films, there's a certain level of just like, oh, that's got to be bad by then. Like, a couple of years after this, it's got to be bad. But there are some good elements to the movie. Like, I like that Bond fucks up by looking at the statue that had gotten smashed, realizing that it had been fixed. So it totally gives away that he was the guy from the previous night. It's a good little moment in an otherwise problematic movie. And we're introduced to two of the main villains, Osato and Helga Brandt, which Helga Brandt is a poor man's Fiona Volpe.
She's so bad. Like she's the worst kind of femme fatale, which is someone who basically you get no character-driven reason for whether she's good or bad or anything along those lines. It's like I don't get what her character is, or you don't know anything about her background, or you don't know what she's doing with Bond. Like the interactions she has with Bond is just ridiculous in this entire thing.
I wasn't a fan at all.
She's literally a copycat Fiona, just not as good. She's not as beautiful. She's not as badass. She's not as interesting. She's got the red hair. She has the scene with Bond of, like, we're going to do this back and forth and I'm going to sleep with you, but it's just because I want to get to you kind of thing. Fiona had the whole motorcycle and killing the villain thing. She's got the plane. Like,
we need to talk about all of that because it's all bad.
But we're gonna get to them.
We'll get to it because I need to run that down really badly.
Osato, I don't mind all that much. He's just kind of just the businessman kind of character.
I mean, I do love the trope of the fact that Bond's in this place, and it's obvious that the people that have seen this Mr. Fisher, because he's taken on the pseudonym of Mr. Fisher, they know he's James Bond, or they know he's like a spy, or they don't know he's James Bond, but they know he's he's spying on them. And Bond knows that Bond knows that they know that he's obviously not on the level as well, and yet they still go through this routine of saying, "Oh yeah, I want to buy these manufacturing chemicals and stuff like that." And it's just, we all know that you all dislike each other, and yet you're still trying to play this game anyway.
There's a good little part, though, where he's looking through an X-ray, and he sees that Bond's got his gun. He's like, I think you're taking a risk right now by smoking. It's bad for your chest. And Helga comes up. Mr. Osato believes in a healthy chest. Just a needless boob joke.
Yeah.
Osato gives the orders to kill Bond, and this is one of the most ridiculous things.
So bad.
He's leaving the front of the fucking building, and these two guys slowly drive up, and what has a goddamn machine gun? What are you going to do? Mow the guy down in front of your legitimate business?
It's more that. It's just like they're stalking him. This car is going 1 mile an hour behind Bond walking there with a machine gun pointing straight out of the window. It's just like, so Bond doesn't recognise it. Aki turns up, tells him to get down or whatever, and then they decide, oh, okay, I guess we can't just follow him down the road for about 10 miles, whatever, while he's just walking and find a quiet place to actually mow him down. Now we've just got to start shooting. It's just so bad.
It's terrible.
Awful.
I mean, the car chase at least is good. It's a bit over the top, but at least it's good.
It gets over the top when you bring in a helicopter that can pick up the bad guy's car with a giant magnet.
Yeah, that was the over the top part. I thought that one was a bit more. That one was a bit more just fun. I thought. That was the only thing that happened in this movie. I'd be totally fine with it, but obviously it wasn't. It's
been a while since I've seen You Only Live Twice, and I completely forgot about the machine gun thing. And I was just like, God, this is terrible. That's real bad.
Villain. This is a really big group of inept villains that we're going to be talking about in this entire movie.
I wonder, though, if that's because in their mind they're like, the Japs are stupid.
It might be, because they're really just not treating them well in this film. They go to the docks. Immediately at the dock sequence, it kicks off another action sequence. It's kind of silly in some ways, but there's this good aerial shot of Bond on the roof fighting with people with a camera.
It's like Street Fighter. He's going through wave and wave of Japanese henchmen and stuff like that. I have to talk about this a little bit because just how bizarre it is. Because they get to the docks and they're surrounded by villains and stuff like that, and so they run up the stairs. One of the villains follows him up. One of the henchmen follows him up. And then they're just standing there for about 30 seconds to a minute, whatever. None of the other people are coming up. There was about 24 people down there chasing down Bond. Only one of them comes up, and then he kills another person that's already up there. So they're allowed to just stand around there, wait for Aki to get out of the way and stuff like that, before all the other 24 people say, "Oh, maybe we should actually go up there and chase Bond and get hold of it." It was just so ridiculous.
And it turns into a kendo stick match. He's got a bamboo stick.
The action scenes in this film, I'm torn between are terrible and are fucking brilliant because they're so obnoxiously over the top.
One thing
that is brilliant is when Bond's jumping off the roofs into things, falling into different crates. Obviously, it's stuntmen, but the brilliant shot is the one where the stuntman falls onto the crates, dives slightly below the crates, and then Sean Connery sticks up, and he's just like, "Okay, so you did that in one camera shot." So that's pretty cool. It's just like, okay, so clearly Sean Connery didn't do that dive, but you made it look like it was Sean Connery the best that you possibly could do. So I appreciate that.
So that dive, when they did that, the stuntman accidentally ripped his pants, and he had red underwear on, and there were all these people watching the scene, and they thought that he just busted his ass and started bleeding. So they were all just like, "Oh my God, what happened?" Whatever. And he's just sort of like, "What the hell are you looking at?" And they're like, you kind of have your ass showing. One of those weird things that happens. Bond gets knocked out. He gets set up with Helga, and there's just no charm to this scene compared to when he was with Fiona.
Yeah, I need to go almost just break this down bit by bit. So Brandt has Bond tied up by the henchman in the cabin, threatens Bond to tell her who he's working for, or she'll cut away his skin. Then she just immediately starts kissing him. Just no real anything towards it, just starts kissing him immediately. Saying she knows he's a spy. Bond tells her that he'll split the money he'll earn, obviously fake money, by selling Osato's process for creating MSG. If she get him back to Tokyo, and then they can escape. Brandt seems stupid enough to believe this, so she cuts Bond free, and like again, just he uses the knife to cut away her dress and stuff like that, and it's just like okay. And then they get in the plane afterwards, and Brandt's that's going to say, "Oh, she's actually a femme fatale. She's more intelligent than Bond by making Bond believe that this is going to happen, but she's actually going to have him die by falling out of a plane." And then they essentially lock his hands down with a fucking wooden board.
Yeah.
Metal exists in this thing. It's used quite liberally in this franchise, so Bond can get one of his arms free and judo chop it apart.
They're Japanese. You see, they're stupid. Like
she's not Japanese. It's like I just don't understand why would, like in the villain's minds, why would you use wooden planks in this situation?
Well, why wouldn't you?
Why is she in the plane already wearing her parachute as if that's not suspicious?
Yeah. And also, just like Bond is able to get control of the plane, land it totally fine without any landing gear or anything like that in the middle of a road, and then jumps out and it immediately explodes.
Oh, it touched something. You know how these things work.
Yeah,
we've seen plenty of cars that go slightly off road and immediately combust.
It's one of those things that like these vehicles always have to combust on contact, but only the second that Bond stops contacting them as well. It's just like, so Bond stops touching, it's touching another surface, it explodes. That's kind of the formula that we have here.
So the one of the lines in this, the best line in this whole sequence is, "Of the things I do for
England.
why am I blanking on that? Yeah, for England." I couldn't think of the name of the freaking country.
Yeah, it's the place I'm from.
The things I do for England was a line that was apparently originally shot for Thunderball. Again, proving that this is just let's do Fiona again. But they cut the line and they just reused it here. I really just don't like Helga Brandt all that much.
I do have to say, because Callum was talking about the lack of any chemistry or anything there, they explained to you in the last film his days of asking are over. So he just cut her dress and like, let's go. Everything that was good about Thunderball and the character development there, we get none of that here, and it's just, I think this is honestly a propaganda piece about, hey, can we just talk about Japanese people being stupid? I really do. Like, there's a lot of that at this time, and it just seems like that's all this film was.
And we get Bond says that we need to send for little Nellie and make sure that her father comes. Who is her father? Who's little Nellie? It's Q. He's back.
Yeah,
with a fucking mini helicopter.
Yeah, with a fucking pit crew that comes up and assembles this mini helicopter. This mini helicopter is just like, I know that in the previous movie we had those little like scuba diving things where you had like these jet propelled things, but that feels like it's something that could be created and would serve a purpose. Bond is in this little tiny baby helicopter, which Tanaka says is like a kid's helicopter, as if you'd ever let a kid in a helicopter anyway. Like, yeah, I don't know a helicopter anyway, but still. But it's like it's got all these weapons on it, which I assume you'll describe in a little while. But Bond gets in it, and he's not wearing any sort of protective outfit or gear. He's not wearing an oxygen mask.
He's got a helmet.
He's not even wearing a fucking seatbelt. And he's in this fucking helicopter going 1,000,000 miles an hour through the sky and stuff like that. It's too much. It is too much even for Bond. It would be too much for a fucking Austin Powers movie.
And it's kind of real.
I know it's a real helicopter.
It's what's weird about it. It's just ridiculous.
I don't claim that it's definitely not a real helicopter. It's obviously a real helicopter. The issue with it is the case that why would somebody who's actually trying to use it for some sort of military purposes or for spying purposes use something which is 1, that loud, 2, that yellow, and 3, that small and completely exposed to the air. So
I love that they start it too by just somebody has to like ram the propeller.
They chop their arm off in the process.
Right, yeah. It's dangerous as all hell. Q couldn't figure out a fucking button for it, you know. But this has 2 machine guns, 2 rocket launchers, heat-seeking missiles, flamethrowers, smoke ejectors, aerial mines. couldn't possibly fit in this little thing, but okay.
Yeah.
And we get the return of the song 007 from Russia with Love that I hate. That which is like, okay, we're just getting flat out ridiculous. And they filmed all this stuff over Scotland, I think, because they just couldn't find like good enough spots for to be able to film and do this the right way.
Oh yeah, that was another part about the earlier thing with Brandt in the plane. It's just like you see her going down in the parachute again. There's a really another awful camera angle shot with that as well. But the other thing is that when she's going down, it's clearly over a village in England. That's clearly not Japan that they're flying over. So it's just
a lot of this stuff with this aerial sequence is bad too. The shots of the helicopters blowing up is like they're just kind of floating.
Yeah,
they blow
one
up.
Helicopter decides to conveniently stand still in the middle of the thing so the aerial mine can land on top of it.
Yeah. Here's the problem, though. If they wouldn't have attacked him, he wouldn't have any idea that he was onto something. Because he's like, oh, just volcanoes. And then they attack him, and he's like, oh, well, maybe there's something here.
Yeah, like I said, the villains are so unbelievably inept in this entire movie. It's like bizarre how bad they are in this one. Especially because Thunderball, they actually show some signs of intelligence, and even Goldfinger as well. Obviously, with Goldfinger and Oddjob, they feel like in certain ways threats to Bond. Whereas this one, they just like none of these villains feel like they're any sort of threat to him, including the main one, which we will talk about.
How does this rank to you, Rob, on the action sequence scale? Because this is one of those things that this is like one of the big selling points of this movie, and I laugh at it all the time.
So it's like I said, I like the action in this film. This feels like you ever watch, maybe you get caught up on like the El Rey network or something, and they're showing like a really badly dubbed Japanese film, and there's just a lot of this action, a lot of this silliness, but it's so bad it's good because you're just able to look at it like that. Now, I'm sure they looked at this in, what is it, 67? And they're like, oh, this is great. This is peak cinema, and Bond just keeps getting better, and he's outsmarting these Japs. The more we talk, the more I'm convinced that that's what this is. He's outsmarting the Japs. They're fucking stupid. Look at them. Look at how stupid they are. We would never be that stupid. We have chest hair.
So it's time for the Russians to have their shit stolen. We get the good space music again. And if you thought it was neat that Spectre has a secret compartment in the wall that Largo can access for a conference room, hold on to your butts, because we're going to go completely off the rails with a goddamn hollowed out volcano. This set, here's some notes on this set. I'll read the thing itself instead of trying to redo it in my own ways. Ken Adams, who's the guy who did most of these sets. Ken Adams does a lot of great work on this franchise. They made this in Pinewood Studios, the Bond set, essentially there. It consisted of a moving helicopter platform, a working monorail system, a launch pad, and a full-scale rocket mock-up that could simulate liftoff, 700 metric tons of structural steel, 200 miles of tubular steel. Adam once said that the set used more steel than was used for the London Hilton Hotel. 200 metric tons of plaster, 500,000 tubular couplings, 8,000 railway ties, 250,000 square yards of canvas just to protect it from the weather. It cost over $1 million for this set. Hell of a set, though.
Yeah, it's a great looking set. It's really, really, really over the top, but I guess they tried to make the most of it.
Yeah, I enjoy when you get to this point, you might as well enjoy over the top, and this is a phenomenal looking set.
This is one of the best sets, I think, in the whole evil lair type of thing. And if this is very Austin Powers, like the whole hollowed out volcano type thing comes up in those movies. So again, they looked at You Only Live Twice and they're like, we got to go with that one for a lot of this.
It's a friggin' volcano.
And we get the return of Dr. Evil, aka Ernst Stavro Blofeld, who no longer has his awesome voice. He's no longer number 2 and all that. He's a new actor, Donald Pleasance. Later on, we'll see a little bit more of him, but he talks about how his piranhas can strip a man to the bone in 30 seconds. Might need a quicker, more efficient piranha if that poison's just a couple seconds and it's not good enough, right?
Well, that's different. You can't. The piranhas need time. The poison should be quick.
He says, Walther PPK, only one man we know uses such a gun, despite how in the previous films it was standard issue that everybody needed to carry.
Well, he's the only guy that still does it.
I guess so. Everybody else went to a different gun, I guess. Yeah. But they kill off Helga Brandt, where she falls in the trapdoor. The second trap walkway in this film, by the way. The film has this line in it, this organization does not tolerate failure. And she falls into the piranha pit. And it's like, no, there you go. Fuck you. You're dead.
Yep.
And we've got a terrible line reading of, kill Bond, now!
This
awful.
This guy is just... This.
That is fantastic. Come on. That's everything we need from just a bad dub.
This is supposed to be Bond's most intimidating villain. Like the guy that's head of the organization that he's been battling for most of this entire film's franchise so far. We'll talk more about him when we actually see him in person, but it's just it doesn't feel the same as it did from Russia with Love.
Yeah, it's bad.
Really bad.
I do like the piranhas.
It's built on the sharks. You might as well carry on with the aquatic killing machines.
Yeah. You know, Blofeld's got a cat, but he likes other animals too, I guess. You know, we can talk about that cat later on too. Remind me to bring up the cat with the sequence at the end. If I don't, because I don't think I have a note about that. But we go to Tanaka's fortress. Did you think that we were done with the casual racism? Nope. We're going to his secret ninja training school. I made fun of the sumo guy earlier, but my favorite sound effect in this film is the one ninja who's training, and he goes, dahu, 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 dahu. When I first saw this movie, when I was like, I don't know, maybe like 11 or something, I busted out laughing so fucking hard at that because I'm like, what is this guy saying? Dahu, 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 dahu. But it's the way he says it that just every time I fucking hear it, I laugh. Because it's just, you're hearing like this other guy's like, cutting up like a scarecrow looking thing. And he's just like, whatever. And you're like, okay, yeah, ninjas. And other people are like, whatever. And then there was this, dahu, 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 dahu. I'm like, geez, you couldn't have done another take of this.
So there we get to see all the typical stuff that you would see in an ninja training school, like kendo sticks and like katanas and shurikens and rocket guns.
Well, the modern ninjas, as they call them, they use guns.
Yeah.
Tanaka's got a cigarette gun, and he says, "This cigarette could save your life." And Bond goes, "You sound like a commercial," which, by the way, is self-referential. Because the rocket pistol and the cigarette gun were real fucking things that somebody else wanted to be featured in the movie, hoping that it would then become like standard spy gear. This is actually product placement.
That's awesome.
That's why he says you sound like a commercial. Because they're just paying for part of the film by being like, look at the cigarette gun. That's a thing. Maybe like the NSA wants that, huh? Yeah. But to have extra special cover for whatever reason, which makes no sense at all to me, Bond needs to pretend to take a wife. And he's like, oh, okay, Aki. And Tanaka's like, nah, for some reason, I don't know why.
He has to be one of the island girls.
He has to marry somebody else who apparently has a face like a pig.
Oh.
Which is just, God.
Yeah.
And as if that's not bad enough, he goes, but first you must become Japanese. And they do it by...
It's like you must become a Japanese.
become a Japanese. They pretend to dye his skin and give him a toupee, and they fuck up his eyes. He doesn't look Japanese at all. He's goddamn Sean Connery. No way in hell does this fool anyone. He towers over people.
Yeah, this 6 foot plus guy is just like it's clearly Sean Connery in a Beatles wig.
Those scoundrels.
How is he going to listen to the Beatles without earmuffs? This is probably the worst part of this film. Arguably, it's like which one you want to pick from, but it's just like, like they give him like, okay, well, we got to make your eyes look Japanese and all this. Oh God, it's just like this shouldn't have been in the movie. There's no reason for it. Even later on, when it gets to the action sequence, it just all falls off. All the makeup falls off, and he's Connery again. It's just there's no reason for this whatsoever.
Now, okay, so spies do actually do this. But they don't say, I need to take a wife with a face like a pig. You know, that's like, there's a way to do this and make it tactful. This isn't it.
I mean, look at the Mission Impossible franchise. They've got lots of like, Ethan's wearing like a fake mustache and he's pretending to be a Russian agent or all these kind of things. And they pull it off because it's just sort of like, all right, well, it's not like, you know, flat out racist. That's why it's just like, give him the toupee. Let's get this stuff and dye his skin. He's, can't you just dye the parts that you can see and whatever? And it's bad. And so Tanaka's secret school isn't all that secret because an assassin breaks in, drips some poison down on a string, and it's meant to go into Bond's mouth, but it ends up going to Naki's, and she dies a very movie death of like, dead kind of thing. Yeah. But it's like, poor Aki.
Yeah, it's a shame that she had to go that way. But listen, I do feel so bad for her. But then in the minutes that follow, where Bond clearly doesn't give a fuck at that point,
yeah,
he just sees. Now, I need to talk about this thing because we're going to talk about the I'm trying to remember her name actually off the top of my head.
Kissy Suzuki.
Yeah. Is she actually named at any point in this movie?
She is not.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. Because I basically am writing my notes and just saying Bond's wife, this woman, his cohort, that sort of thing. Just because, like, I don't know who the fuck she is.
Yeah, she's not named a single time in the movie.
Yeah.
And she's the main Bond girl. So it's like, why didn't you just, like, if it's one character in the books, and you've got the one actress that is better at English than the other one, whatever. Mia Hama's cute, whatever. Like, they do this fake out where she doesn't have a face like a pig. It turns out, you know, this whole, there's this older woman and Bond's like, whatever. And it's like, yeah, no, she's actually, pretty. But, like, it really should have just been Aki.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know why you had to switch it over. That maybe they felt like they had to have a sacrificial lamb to try and make the mission a little bit more personal for Bond, but Bond doesn't care by that point because he's now just as like immediately after marrying Kissy, he's like in the room together and he's immediately trying to share a bed with her and stuff like that, and she's like, "No, this is like professional." It's just like, and then he says, "Oh, I guess I won't need these." Then he's going to be snacking on a load of oysters because he wants to get hard or whatever and stuff like that. Okay, I don't need these anymore.
That sequence is funny too because it's like, do you live here alone? Yes, my parents are dead. Oh, oysters. Like, kind of, you know what these are good for? We're not going to do that. Fuck these then. Like, it's like, you were pretty into Aki not that long ago, and you're like, laying down in bed with her, and she dies, and you're like, she's dead. Anyway, you want to do some more training? That guy's with the kendo stick. He's got a blade on it. Yeah, he almost tried to kill me. Kind of like Aki. Anyway, is this girl got a face like a pig or what? Like, it's just like, what the hell, man? All of this is just weird.
Yeah, it's at this point, I think we can say it's just the character trait, but the constant dismissal of every single woman does get a little old. Like, you almost wish that he did take some of this shit personal.
sometimes they can play it off really well. There's a line in The Man with the Golden Gun that we'll talk about where I won't spoil it, but sometimes it's like, all right, it is what it is. I know what the job is, and we'll move on, and you got to do that kind of a thing. But other times, like with this one, it's like, oh, Aki, like, you could be my wife and whatever like that. Oh, you're dead. Well, let's move on to the next one. Let's joke. Let's whatever. Even Tanaka's just sort of like, oh man, like Aki's dead. That's a shame. All right, well, you want something to eat? Some more sake, But Mr. Fisher earlier is now a fisherman, which is funny. And they go to the volcano, and for the whole remainder of the film, Kissy's in a bikini because,
Yeah.
Why not?
Bond. Go ahead.
This is the most bizarre thing, because obviously they're fishing around, and she informs him of like a cave that's like a woman had gone out to, and then she never returned from. She was killed. And so they head out over to there, and there's like some gas that escapes from the thing, and so they have to swim away from it. So they completely lost their boat at this point. And I know this is cutting through like a bit of the movie, so obviously you can backtrack if we need to. But essentially, they climb up this mountain with her just wearing a bikini and some flat shoes. And like Bond's obviously fairly protected. He's not in like the most protective gear ever, but he's still wearing clothes, let's put it that way. And she's walking up all these rocks and dirt and stuff like that, and she's just wearing a bikini, and then they fall over in the grass and they make out for a bit because now apparently she's interested in him again, with no context behind that at all whatsoever. But they have to stop because the helicopter flies over. They go into the volcano, they see what the issue is, and then he tells her, like, once he's about to go in, go and get all Tanaka's men. And then we see her later on just swimming across the ocean.
Yeah.
Just like, we'd have no idea how far out they were from the mainland or that island and stuff like that. It's like, she's just swimming from one side of the ocean to the other to try and get these guys to come in. It's so ridiculous. It's way, way, way too over the top. It defies all logic.
Yeah, they try to shoot at her from a helicopter too, and then they're like, well, I guess we got her or something. And
yeah.
By the time that if it's at night and they move over and whatever, this would have taken such a long time. And why didn't they just have like some kind of, I don't know, walkie-talkies or something?
Yeah.
Or why didn't she have clothes?
Yeah. And something that we haven't actually really referenced about, because in fact it's the main plot point of the film. They're a race against the clock because the Americans are about to launch another spaceship into the air. And that's going to be swallowed whole by the rocket ship that got the first one and got also a Russian cosmonaut probe as well early on. So that's basically what they're racing up against, is the fact that they're, again, going to capture more things. And they're trying to start a war, the Cold War, turn it into a hot war between the Russians and the Americans.
Again. Like they did with, For Much With Love.
I mean, that's their goal. Yeah, that's their goal, essentially.
Yeah.
It's the start of the war between Russia and America, and Spectre to try and reap all the profits from the outside of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get our true introduction to Blofeld, who never blinks in the movie. Just one of those things.
Is it just to do with the makeup?
Well, apparently the way that they did the makeup back then was they had some kind of a weird glue that shrunk his face and ended up bruising the hell out of him. Which is like, that's great. Blofeld sucks.
Yep, so bad.
Yep. Not threatening.
No, I mean, in the previous ones, he is, because he's just this dude that's just sort of like, I'm smarter than everyone, and I'm this threatening presence, even though I'm just a hand and a voice. And in this one, he's this creepy little dude with a cat that is freaked the fuck out throughout this whole sequence, to the point that the cat ran away and they had to try to find it for a couple days, and it never was able to work again as like a cat in like commercials and stuff. Just ruined this dude's career.
Oh, that's it.
You can see shots of the cat being like, get that fuck out of here. It's funny enough, it's not the worst Blofeld.
Oh god, that's
No, you say funny enough. I don't think you know what funny means.
Because the worst Blofeld is the one that we're going to get in Diamonds Are Forever.
Okay, well, we'll get to that then. But this one is just like Rob says, he's completely non-intimidating. He is the worst kind of the Bond trope of, oh, we've got Bond here now, and I could just shoot him in the stomach or something and be done with it. But no, we have to talk about him and have to keep him alive so he can see all this stuff happen in front of his eyes. It's like, ugh.
What a schmuck with the, hey, can I have my cigarettes? Yeah, give him his cigarettes. It won't be the nicotine that kills you, Mr. Bond. Which Osato should be happy about.
Yeah.
He was, into the whole
He does
smoking
like a
thing.
healthy jest.
Yeah.
And then Bond uses the cigarette gun to shoot down somebody and like try and deal with a few bits and pieces. Like he fights off everybody. He helps get the Tanaka's men to get into position so they can get into the base. And then like they catch Bond, they stop him by just pointing a load of guns at him, and then they still refuse to shoot him. Just like, why keep him alive even longer? You've already messed up enough the fact that you've been completely infiltrated by a load of Japanese ninja infantry, and now you're just, okay, we'll still have to keep him alive though. He still needs to have some sort of more painful death or anything like that.
Even to the point where he is pointing the gun at Bond and decides not to shoot him, but shoot Osato, so he could go into another room to point the gun at Bond and try to shoot him. It's like, just shoot him then.
Yeah, it's just so bad because it's just a case of, okay, if they were leading him to some sort of like special torture device or something like that, then fair enough or whatever. But he just he kills, like you say, he kills Osato, and then he just sits down in one of those little monorail pods, and then he just points the gun at Bond and says, "Okay, I'm just going to shoot you now." Then instead, and then he gets completely foiled by a shuriken to the wrist.
Good old Shatterhand.
Yeah, and now the entire base is completely infiltrated. There's like, again, it's one of the big action scenes where it's like all the Japanese infantry is killing Blofeld's men. So there's big shootout. They're killing each other. Bond is completely impervious to everything. Funnily enough, Kissy's also impervious to everything, considering the fact she's only wearing like a bikini in a battlefield, essentially. Just, yeah.
This is really starting to feel like a bunch of dorks playing treehouse with one another.
They're like, and then we got ninjas coming from the ceiling, and this one throws a grenade, and it's like, the other one's like, I got a gun now. And
because Blofeld's not intimidating, and he seems kind of like the whiny little bitch that's the head of the operation just because I'm the smartest. And then you have things with Bond, like we talked about with you can only drink sake at 98.4 degrees. It's like, all right, are you the dork that tries to force your way onto women because you're trying to prove that you're not a dork? This is really starting to feel like a very bizarre, we're all not cool, but look at how cool we're trying to be you because we have ninjas and guns and gadgets.
You know what this is in a different era? Bond puts on his fedora, and he talks talks about Milady and how he is super into anime, and he knows Japanese, and he's got a katana. That's what it totally is.
He talks about Studio Ghibli films and stuff like that. He's got 40 million Pokemon cards or whatever, and they're all shinies.
I respect women, and because of that, you should fuck.
Right?
Yeah.
I have to mention something as well because I know we skipped over this thing, but this thing just out of it shouldn't really have done, but this thing out of everything just blew my mind. So he gets infiltrates back behind the scenes. Like first of all, after all of the gadgets and the massive helicopter, all the rockets stuff, he gets down into the base by using 4 suction cups on his. That's just like, okay, sure. And then he's walking around and he's hidden, he's disguised as one of the henchmen and stuff like that. He gets to the prison cell where they're holding the astronauts, and you overhear the conversation. And at that point, the astronaut is asking something of the cosmonauts. And at that point, they say, "We call our astronauts cosmonauts." And I'm supposed to fucking believe that in the number of days that they've been in prison there, it hasn't been brought up at one point whatsoever that the Russians say cosmonauts instead of astronauts. It's It's like, fuck off. That's completely too far for me. Like, you can have your little yellow helicopter and stuff like that, and your
that crosses the
car that
line.
isn't a convertible that actually is a convertible for this movie. No, the first thing the astronauts asked was probably something to do with cosmonauts and stuff like that. You're not telling me any different. Like,
Or maybe they've just been having this discussion over and over again, and they're like, well, we call it fucking cosmonauts. Like, just kind of like,
and then
yeah, well, we
also-
call it astronauts, asshole.
Yeah, and then also for some reason the astronauts are like experts at hand-to-hand combat, as if that's part of like astronaut training to fight
Hey,
off the
you
aliens.
know what those fucking aliens are gonna do? Those
Oh.
aliens might know kung fu, and we can't have that.
In this series, we're going to see later on that hand-to-hand combat is good for astronauts with their laser guns. Because we get laser guns. And, one of them just kind of disappears, though. Bond is with 3 of them, and then the next scene, he's just next to 2 of them. One of them, I don't know, whatever. And we get a shit ton of ninjas descending from the ceiling, doing all this stuff. Again, we mentioned before, this film has the highest body count by like a ridiculous amount. It's like 180 people get killed in this film or something, including Hans with the piranhas. Now, here's a little funny thing. This is not the last time that we will see a tall, blonde-haired German guy in a black shirt who no-sells punches and gets taken out in some fashion that involves water. It's oddly specific, isn't it?
Yeah.
All of those elements, and you go, well, I mean, surely he's not blonde, or he's wearing a different color shirt, or he's not German, or he's not... Yeah, no. So they like this trope of tall, blonde-haired German in a black shirt who you can punch, and he just acts like it's nothing. Let's kill him in water.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen enough. We've seen enough to know what this, like, the burly meat puppet henchman that you have, like the one that's just there to pose the biggest physical intimidation to Bond. But Hans isn't involved in anything in this movie.
No.
Like, he's just there. Like, he should have at least killed someone in this movie to make him feel like he's intimidated. Like, could have just crushed someone's head with his bare hands or something like that, and that you feel like, okay, that's going to be a real test for Bond if he ever comes up to account with him. We don't know anything about this guy when he starts fighting.
No, he's literally, hey, Hans. That's it.
Yeah, and then it's just like, and then he's just immediately thrown, like it's a good
Back body
like,
drop.
2-minute fight sequence, but yeah, the back body dropped into the piranhas, so that was worth it.
But you would think-
better than Mimosa.
You would think, if anything, the back body drop should happen with Peter Maivia. So everything blows up because, you know, that's how it works.
Yeah.
And Bond decides he wants to go on the honeymoon. They'll never find him, even though there's a submarine directly underneath them. And at this point, it's just sort of like every film ends similarly. Dr. No, Bond and Honey Rider are on a raft. For Much With Love, Bond and Tatiana are on a gondola. Pussy Galore and Bond, they're near the water. It's a plane thing. It's a rescue type thing. Thunderball, you've got the raft and the plane. This one, the raft drops from the plane. Next film's going to be a massive departure from that, about as 180 degrees as you can get from this idea of that kind of a thing. I don't want to spoil anything about that, but another sort of underwhelming, like, that's what it is. Let's watch this terrible footage of a volcano erupting.
Oh, that was so bad. The video footage of the volcano. It's just, this movie.
You know what? It's not the best Bond film, I'll tell you that right now. But I enjoyed it for its stupidity. Like, Callum said this prior to getting on the air, that it was the best unintentionally hilarious movie he's seen, and that's kind of where I land.
I did. I messaged Tony about this. It's like this. It's like I'm having a fever dream watching this movie. It's just, I can't hate. I honestly hate on it a bit because I just don't think it's a good movie. But just due to the fact that it's like The Room. The Room's a bad movie, but you still enjoy it by watching it because you're just laughing half the time. You're laughing half the time. You're cringing the other half. That's basically what this movie is.
Yeah. It's not good.
No.
I rank it above Dr. No, though, because to me it's fun.
above Dr. No, but it ain't going higher than that.
To keep track of this, I have my spreadsheet up just because, yeah, I like spreadsheets and stuff. So at this point, Rob, you've got Dr. No as your least favorite, and You Only Live Twice is the fourth. How did you rank the other ones?
Goldfinger
What's the best?
From Russia with Love and Thunderball.
Okay. And Callum, where are you going to put You Only Live Twice in this?
I think I'm going to put it last. Just below From Russia with Love. It's close between the two of them because, again, I'm a huge critic of the entire central romance plot in the From Russia with Love. I think this is more fun than that movie, but it's just too over the top for me. And it's too racist as well.
On the spectrum of the other kinds of things that we've talked a lot about here and there or whatever, but the humor, it's funny. It's unintentionally funny.
Yeah.
It's not funny in the right way, but it's funny.
But there are spoof versions of like from the Bond franchise that are less funny than this movie is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys said it perfectly.
The parts that are supposed to be funny aren't as funny. It's the laughing at the, oh God, oh no, why are they doing that kind of thing?
Yeah.
The action, I think that Rob kind of summed it up best. You don't know if it's good or if it's terrible or if it's terribly good.
I because of the way I'm categorizing this, I'll say it's good because it fits the spoof film variety.
Yeah, I can't say that it wasn't entertaining. It's, again, just way, way, way too over the top, but it is entertaining.
The allies, which are mostly Aki, Tiger Tanaka, and Kissy Suzuki, I guess Henderson, too. We have the one scene of Bernard Lee's M, and we have Q, and we have Moneypenny, but to me, this is the worst of the Moneypenny and M type of stuff. Well, the M thing, not all that bad. I mean, like, I like how they burn the little message or whatever, but the Moneypenny thing, it's a downgrade, and M is just M. Q is mostly just Q. It's not the best with them, at the very least.
No, I do like Tanaka.
I like Tanaka.
Yeah, he's good.
He's a charming character.
I thought Tanaka was a lot of fun, but this is my least favorite so far of the regulars.
And the girls,
the money.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was gonna say the Moneypenny interaction was very cold, and this wasn't the best cue. And yeah, just not a fan of the way the regulars interacted in this movie.
And the girls, again, the Moneypenny thing, we looped into that, but it's Aki and it's Kissy Suzuki, and well, like Ling, but Ling doesn't really count.
Well, Brandt's in there as well because she's a femme fatale Bond girl. So
yeah, I like Aki. I don't have any real opinion about Kissy because she's just not even really like serving a purpose. She's kind of just there to be a girl for him to have at the end. And that's literally what they did in the movie. That's part of the quote Bond formula that they told him to write, which was you need a femme fatale who gets killed, an ally who gets killed, and a girl for him to end up with. So that's why he did that, which is a shame because it should have just been Aki. And really, Helga Brandt shouldn't have even existed. No.
Yeah, there's it's a poor overall effort. I think it's like Aki's great, but it's hurt by the fact that she's not the one that's the final Bond girl. Kissy's just a bit of a non-entity, and Brandt is a really, really awful copy of the of Fiona from the previous movie. So yeah, downgrade for this one.
Yeah, I would say downgrade overall. I really like Aki though, but that might just be personal preference.
Now, Aki, on my current rankings, because I'm ranking as we're going along, and I did a ranking beforehand, and I've been ranking as I'm going along here to see if maybe my opinions change based off of the original one that I had done. Aki for me right now is around the range of Domino and Paula from Thunderball. She's a little bit underneath Pussy Galore. But I like her. She's one of the better ones. Kissy is towards the very end. She's underneath like Pat Fearing for me. Because she really just doesn't have like any real agency or purpose or anything. She's above the Gypsy Girls. I'll give her that, you know.
But come on, they settle it in Jiu-Jitsu right now.
Yeah. It does need to become a thing. And as far as the villains go, like we had said, there's Hans, who doesn't serve a purpose. He's not a thing. Helga Brandt just sucks in comparison. I like Osato for what he's used for, but he's not great compared to, like, I mean, you get like Fiona and Odd Job and Red Grant. Even Professor Dent, I think I'd rank above these for like the henchmen.
Yeah, the henchmen. I think the villains across the entire movie are just so inert and so easily disposed of by Bond. They don't feel like that any of them hold any sort of challenge for him.
Yeah. Again, completely inept, and I'm actually going to look it up and see if this was all part of just a bigger way to bury the Japanese because of the culture of the world at the time.
And the main villain, we got Blofeld in 2 other movies, and my current ranking for the main villains right now, I've got Blofeld from Rush with Love at number 1, Blofeld from Thunderball at number 2, Rosa Klebb, Goldfinger, Emilio Largo, and then I'm like, well, Dr. No's better than this Blofeld. This is the worst villain so far out of the main villains.
Yeah, really bad. He doesn't have the excuse that he doesn't have hands.
Yeah, at least then with Dr. No, it's like, well, I don't have these hands and whatever, but he
does pretty good for a guy with no hands.
Yeah. I like the scar, but Blofeld is just... Donald Pleasance isn't a bad actor, but he does a bad job in this. And he's not threatening.
Yeah, genuinely, and again, a lot might be considered facetious and stuff like that. I think Mike Myers' Dr. Evil is more intimidating than this guy looks.
Yeah, there's an argument that can be made for that, for sure.
I'll allow it.
Especially when he gets angry. The whole, like, with sharks, with freaking laser beams, or whatever. Be like, all right, I buy more into that guy being a...
Yeah. Did you see him in, like, the in prison? God, that was a tough guy.
So that's the girls. Let's talk about the gadgets. We've got... Primarily, it's just the helicopter. There's not too much else.
Yeah, it's the helicopter and the cigarette gun.
It's a cigarette gun. There's like the trapdoor and, you know, some little things here and there, but there's the shitty little wood plank in the airplane.
And 4 suction cups.
Yeah, the suction cups. The plane, the helicopter thing is like... I don't want to say that it's like it's one of the worst, because I don't think that it is, especially when you get to, like, you know, the other movies where it's like, oh, he's got a gun. Okay, that's great in Dr. No. But it's nowhere near high up on my list. Lots of people love the little Nelly. It's not my thing.
It's fun, and it's like it's got a lot of the useful gadgets that you'd see in like a lot of the cars and stuff like that. It just, for me, it's totally unfit for purpose. So that's what my issue is with it. I'd like at least a semblance of logic in some of the gadgets that he has.
Yeah. I got nothing there. I agree with everything Callum said. I don't always want to have to repeat what I'm saying.
Music-wise, I like a lot of the music in this, actually. I do like some of the Japanese music that they're, like, Japanese-inspired music. I like the score from the scenes where they're stealing the ships. I love You Only Live Twice.
Yeah, You Only Live Twice is iconic. The music in the movie, I'm a little indifferent towards it. Obviously, they were going with the Japanese-inspired feel. Not my favorite take on that, but also not the worst.
Yeah, I liked the. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the opening theme. And I like the little interpretations they did of it throughout the movie in certain bits and pieces. And unlike Tony, I'm a fan of the music that they play during the helicopter fight scene. So yeah, overall, it's thumbs up for me on the score from.
They did a good thing in this where they didn't play the Bond theme in scenes that made no sense.
Oh yeah, that's obviously an advantage.
He's not like, Saki is 98.4. It's just kind of like,
I'm just gonna make a coffee.
Yeah. But that ultimately brings us to the ultimate rating, which I guess in this one should it be stirred, not shaken? Is that how we should do it?
Yeah, I think this is a stirred one for me.
It's very stirred.
It's very fitting for Henderson.
That was the right way around, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not good. I love it for how
it's
terrible
good,
it is.
According to some critics, what do you mean? It's very good according to some critics.
It's weird. This is a movie that at one point in time I thought was one of the better ones. And then I was just like, I grew up and realized how bad it is. And then I was like, oh wow, no, this is actually really, really bad.
Well,
like,
it's one of those movies that I'm not saying as a kid or whatever, but as someone who's a bit less wised up or anything like that, or doesn't have a huge repertoire of movies behind it, it's just like this is very action packed and it doesn't like hold in any places for too long and stuff like that. So it does keep the narrative going. So you don't get bored watching this movie at any point in time. You just get offended eventually.
Yeah. Structurally, like, the movie isn't as bad or as boring as some other ones. Like, Dr. No is a harder watch, for sure. Just because it's, it's flat and whatever. This just happens to be a movie that, if they were to tweak a couple things and not do some other things, it'd be a better film. And, maybe do a couple more takes of certain scenes for the acting is a little bit wooden, like the Moneypenny scene, or recast a couple people, maybe like Blofeld, or I think if you do a rewrite of this movie, and they do in some ways, because this is a structure that you get in a lot of other Bond films, like I mentioned before, the whole like you start off with the villains stealing something and Bond is going to track them down and he's going to go to a different country and he's going to meet these people and whatever. Like The Spy Who Loved Me is very similar to this. And Moonraker is a carbon copy of The Spy Who Loved Me. And there's some kind of copy-ish elements for Tomorrow Never Dies, and there's some for some other. And I think that those movies just do it a little bit better and a little less offensive. That's
only
fun,
a little
though.
less. That's not great. Not great foreshadowing.
Well, I mean, we haven't gotten to Live and Let Die. But Live and Let Die has its moments, yet there's not as many. It just happens to be a couple of those moments are sort of like, okay, now that's the one that we're going to have an issue with. Like, let's move over to this culture and make ourselves look like asses. So ultimately, You Only Live Twice. It has its place. It's a hell of a fun movie. And definitely one of the ones that I was most excited to talk about. The whole notes that I've got are knocked out of any other kind of things you guys have in mind.
No, I think I'm pretty much covered as much as I can. There's obviously a lot you can run down in this movie, but I think, especially with the cinematography and stuff like that, but I think I've pretty much covered all of it.
Yeah, I'm good. I will say the one thing that came to mind was this might be the first Austin Powers film, and I've said that a few times, and I think really after this discussion, it holds up. I think this was the unofficial first Austin Powers movie. It's
a shame that they don't have that do 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 kind of song that they do in the Austin Powers films too. Could have just put that in a couple.
Quincy Jones.
Yeah. So, we did some plugs here ahead of time. As I said, many times before, we're going to run through all the films in this. And, hopefully you are joining us for this whole thing. And if you want more in some other kind of capacity, I don't really know how else we can add more to what we're doing. But if you do, drop a comment below. Tell us your thoughts. Head up to Patreon. That way you can sponsor some things like that going forward. If in particular, like we've talked about the idea of maybe doing like Johnny English movies or something, you could always take advantage of the Pick Your Poison tier if you want to make sure that we do that stuff. But my plugs for the Fanboys stuff is mostly out of the way. Let's talk a little bit about the other things that we got going on. I've got my pro wrestling site, Smart Out Moment, which a lot of you probably are familiar with. If you're not, and maybe if you're a fan of Peter Maivia and you're into the pro wrestling stuff, go to smarkoutmoment.com and check out everything that's happening over there. Check out the Smack Talk podcast and listen to what other stuff that me and these two guys get into on a regular basis. They also include the podcast that mostly, I only did one, Rob and Callum are responsible for, which is the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast. So if you want to hear more of Rob and Callum, not just on the hot tags and the Royal Rumble pay-per-view and the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view and different things that we've got going on there, they've got that podcast. Tell them a little bit about that, Callum.
Yeah, so if you're a fan of retro wrestling and what you mean like in the early 2000s, we go back, me and Rob, to the year 2002 and 2003 on SmackDown, where Paul Heyman was the head writer for, and we review every single episode under his tenure. Right now we're heading into episode 33, which is heading into No Way Out 2003, which we'll also be doing a review on the Smart Cow Moment Patreon at the $10 tier or above. But on this one, you can look forward to a tag team championship match, a main event with Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle, some more stuff involving a Crate and The Undertaker and The Big Show. There's plenty of stuff to look forward to on that series. And obviously check out all the great articles on smartcowmoment.com and follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14.
Yeah, and you can check me out on all of those great things, as well on other Fanboys Anonymous podcasts like the Mulan. Maybe we'll be reviewing some DC stuff in the future. You can also mostly check me out in the wrestling spectrum over on Fightful.com. I'm occasionally over at Wrestling.com as well. I might give Twitch a try soon. Stay tuned for that. I don't know when this drops. Maybe that'll be a thing.
This will be like mid-February, I think is when I'm going to be posting this.
Yeah, I mean, I may be on Twitch, so just follow me on Twitter at DudeFelice and just click around.
And I think that's about it. I have all of my stuff going on. You can follow me under a mango tree and at Tony Mango, and pretty much just stay tuned because we got plenty coming your way, because this podcast will return with On Her Majesty's Secret Service.